or just start pronouncing it in a weird way. Cannabis. No. It's like, you picking up on
Okay.
that, you bastards? All right. Ooh, a roundtable episode. God damn, I love these roundtable episodes. And we have a full fucking house today. I am very excited to announce that we have Levi, Ben, Luke, Amanda, Jackie, and Jeff, all of which have been a part of the community for a very long time. Occasionally, they weave in and out of the community as their life deems necessary, and they come back with tales of adventure. And so we're always very appreciative to have them here on the roundtables with us. If you have not joined a roundtable previously and you are on Patreon, hell, if you're not on Patreon, jump on Patreon, jump onto one of these roundtables because they're a lot of fun, as you're about to find out.
Yeah. Woo. Welcome, everyone. Appreciate everyone making it. And yeah, because we've had roundtables in the past where we've probably had some roundtables where no one showed up also. So it's always a lot of fun to have a bigger group. But it is exciting to just have the groups to chat about stuff and how like everyone's for the most part going through at least variations of very similar things all the time. And then to talk about it, it's like, oh yeah, that one hits. And how often like we'll think we have nothing to share, but then we start talking about just like shit we're going through or dealing with, and a bunch of people are like, yeah, 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 I get that. No, that resonates a lot. So it's exciting when that happens, and these are always a lot of fun. Ben, what is up, man? Good to see you.
Hey, hey everyone. Hello everybody watching the stream and the recording thereafter. So man, just to kick it off, you hit on something that I have been thinking about for a while that I weave in and out of, which is when I'm going through something and like I want to share it here. Sometimes I think, who's gonna want to hear what I'm going through? Like, I mean, this is my shit to deal with. It's not like this is like a therapy group, but sometimes it seems like it. So fucking why not? Why not just share something that okay, so yeah, so today, I'm at work and I I've been wanting to be fully remote for a while. I work mostly remote, but I want that location independence, where I'm able to work from anywhere. And I've had definitely had anxiety about today was the day is the day that I brought it up to my manager and my one coworker who um I work very closely with. And I've I've talked about it with people even like higher up as well, like some of the executive people, like, hey, like, is it possible for someone in my role or just for someone like me to be in a remote position? And the executive team said yes, like that is absolutely possible. This so and it's a great company to kind of do whatever you want, blaze your own trail, um, if you so choose. Because yeah, very very open, for progressive company. But still, I had this anxiety that like I was gonna get pushback, saying that like it's not possible from my manager or my coworker. I had a suspicion that my manager would be more receptive to it, and then my coworker wouldn't. Um, and so yeah, today I've leading up to it, especially I was feeling all the nerves, and then because it was my performance review as well. So yeah, I'm in the performance review. We're just going through how my previous year went, and I'm the nerves are building up because I'm about to say something that like that doesn't normally happen in the company. No one really asks for this. So then yeah, eventually we do get to it, and I tell them that I want to be fully remote, and my manager is receptive, and he goes like, this is possible, just not now. You got to build some more skills first, and I don't see it happening for 2 to 3 years. And I was like, this that's fine. Honestly, I'm not in a rush to to be fully remote. Like I know if there's things that I have to learn first that can benefit the company as well as myself, like I will learn those. I have eternity, so really there is no rush to get to this place. And then my coworker also responded in not receptive to it. He didn't say it wasn't possible. The only thing he did was make a very strong case against it. Um, you know, like customer training, like you can't do that virtually. No one likes to do that virtually. And like being there with like because we work on HVAC equipment, so being there for the equipment startup, like you have to be in front of the equipment, which is fine. Like I recognize that for that it is better to be in person. Um, but there's other things that you can do that don't require you to be on site. And that is something that I'd want to like specialize in. But I was getting this vibe from my coworker that the path he took is the only right way to go about this career. And like even there's like guidelines outlining like what like literally check boxes, what you should do to receive the next promotion. And like we were going through that list and that's when I brought it up actually at the end of like the check boxes. I was like, hey, like I know we're looking at this guide, but I mean, I did talk to the executives and they said that you don't have to follow this. You can create your own path. And that's what I want to do. And I just think maybe my coworker is clinging to that path that there is only one way to do this job correctly. Um so yeah, then I was just feeling a lot after that meeting. I was just in it, feeling raw. Well, especially I was thinking a lot about what my coworker thought, and not even my boss, who was like, "Yeah, like we can do this. Like just give it some time." So, and I'm fresh off the experience too, so maybe give myself a few days as well. But this is something that just happened to my life. So maybe someone can resonate, or if not, it's okay.
Oh yeah, no, I can absolutely resonate with that experience of, oh fuck, here we go, I'm gonna rock the boat. And what's funny is that you're not really, you're just expressing yourself, you're asking a question, you're not hurting anybody by doing so, you're welcome to have your own ambitions and all of that. It's just that it's so hard to get out of this mentality that we learned in school, that everybody has to think the same way and do the same thing and go in the same direction and have the same ideals about what a successful life is and all that other shit. And so immediately talking to your coworker that he's he's going to be like, no, because I'm not at home, so fuck you. And it's the same thing that we normally get from other people. But the fact that your boss was just like, yeah, like we could see that happening. It's not impossible. You see, what I like about that is the fact that he's giving you a timeline that in his head is not too soon. So what he's saying is not right now, but a long time off. And he's saying a long time off so that way you are willing to strap in for the long haul. But he doesn't know 2 to 3 years. Fact is, if you pound on the fucking every project that you have for the next year, year and a half, and gain their trust just through being fucking proficient at your job, right? Then they may go, yeah, you know what? You fuck. Why the fuck not? You work like a motherfucker all the time. It's not like we have any doubts that you're going to continue to do that at home, right? But that's the thing, like, and that might be part of what your coworker's saying too. Like, if I was at home, I wouldn't be doing any of this shit. And so he might be saying like that's the path to fucking failure, because it's the same thing as we hear from people who didn't take a gap year after high school, right, who went straight into university. So often they're like, don't take the gap year. You won't go back to university, man. Yet it's like, well, how do you know that? It's because I wouldn't know. It's like, I see. But that's the whole point. Like, bias is a son of a bitch. But I think that was a great answer, and I just want to say congratulations for sticking your neck out. As much as it wasn't really, it felt like it at the fucking time, and it always does when you do it just a little bit more, a little bit more. But another thing I would just want to say, and I'll pass it on, is that you are young in a lot of ways, and everything still feels fucking huge, huge. And at some point, you're going to look back at this job that you barely remember You barely remember. And you're going to go, wow, a lot of shit's happened since then. I've learned a lot about talking and speaking up for myself, though, because you're still thinking of this as your career, right? You have no idea. 2 years from now, an opportunity might come along that changes everything that you think you want to do. You don't know, so just good job. You focused on today. You made this about your relationship with yourself, and you faced your fears. That's fucking awesome.
Fuck yeah, man. It's always interesting, like the build up before doing something too, and we'll like call it nerves or we'll call it anxiety or something, but really it's like just energy. And so much of it is just to like get us to do something almost, or bring our attention into where we're at. But I think too, like just being able to make the most of the situation you're in right now, it can help so much. Like we'll have these thoughts about what we want, what I want. And we'll try and get that. But then when we don't get it, it's like we're left with what is. And that's always the case. So it's always kind of just distraction. So like right now I'm in the process of moving, like I'm close to being back to where I want to be, but I'm not quite there. And a couple of days ago I had a point where I was like, fuck, I'm in this like, super I'm in my grandma's out of town. So she's nice enough to let me stay in her house, but I'm just like in this sleepy town that I don't know anyone. There's like straight up nothing to do at all, like entirely alone. And the first day I was like, I really want to, get an apartment and like get back into my own sort of thing in life. And there's a lot of things I want to do when I get back. And I was kind of like getting all worked up. Then I was like, all right, well, I'm in a situation right now, and there's no guarantee that stuff's going to happen. When that stuff happens, my life is going to continue to shift and change. But right now, I got time to just focus and do a bunch of shit. So I've just been, focusing in on what I can do right now. But it's always, there's a lot of times those points where like, I really want this other thing. It's like, oh, well, there's a lot of things I can do right now. Like, on a rainy day, for example, people are like, oh, I wanted to go outside. And it's like, all right, well, you can still go outside in the rain because that's kind of fun too. But that's not happening. So like, what can you do with it? And then like all of a sudden, all these options open up when your, vision opens up. It's not so tunnely anymore. But yeah, great to hear, Ben. It's awesome. Levi, what's up, dude? Good to see you.
Hey everyone. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I'm just gonna jump on this whole work trade that we got going on here. So yeah, it's just I've been through some interesting, I don't know, probably like a while. I just haven't really noticed until quite recently, like the last couple of days. But it's basically I'm in a position where the whole work thing is all the way up in the air. Like the company I've been working for is out of money, so I kind of have to like take the final decision and just say, we're gonna stop this stuff for sure. And then on the other side, I have like in like there's just so many options, right? To what the person can do. Like it's where in the world, where like what kind of job is like do I do it like go out on my own, or do you like join a company and all this stuff? Oh my God. And I've just been like, it's just been going on, with all these options. And then I don't know, yesterday you guys were having a Raw, and I think you said, Andrew, something along the lines like it's not about something, and then like it's about how present you are with whatever you're doing, right? And then that kind of just was in the back of my head for a little bit, and then it just absolutely like hit me like, oh my God, because I know it doesn't matter what I choose, it's like just be present with whatever you're doing like right now, and whatever, if I don't know, writing an application or something. And I like there was just this unbelievable veil that was just lifted off me, and I started crying a bit, and it was just because it's like I'm building up this insane pressure, and I can't kind of see it until it goes away, sort of. So I find that very fascinating, but basically just I obviously haven't come to any conclusion, but it's just really nice to not be so worried about the conclusion, basically. And now I'm just, yeah, I feel I'm kind of back to center here, sort of. So it feels nice. But I still have no clue what to do. So, but whatever, I'll just do something and I'll be present with it. And I'm just, yeah. Oh my God, just being present here and now is just, that's what it's all about. And it's like, it's just, oh my God. Anyway, I'm gonna stop babbling about that. Just wanted to share that, I guess.
That's awesome. And I love it because it's so hard to describe, and we end up saying something mundane like it feels nice. And it does. And it does feel nice, but it's just like there's so much more to it than that. But it's that ability suddenly to recognize that not only are you doing what you're doing, but you're adding weight. So all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm making this harder than it needs to be. And we spent fucking years not even knowing that, thinking that somehow the pressure in our mind was actually part of what we were doing. That this relentless self-judgment, this relentless fucking bar that we are measuring ourselves up to is actually part of taking on a challenge. Like, well, if I'm not judging myself, I'm not facing it. It's like, what are you fucking talking about? Right. And it's just that until you question it, until you actually look at it and go, I can still get shit done and not think about myself so fucking much, that you start to go, oh, fuck, I was doing it. And that's it. It's so freeing because you recognize the responsibility in it as soon as you stop judging yourself for it. Right. As soon as you stop going, oh, I keep adding weight to myself. That's more weight. It's more weight. Stop doing that. Right. But when you get it and you laugh, yeah, it's transformative in the extreme, and it doesn't take anything away from what you're doing except this fucking stupidity that didn't need to be there to begin with.
Yeah, it's kind of unreal how much like lighter something gets. Not necessarily like objectively light, like there's still some feeling of weight and like, shit going on. It's like life and all that good stuff. But how often I'm like making some sort of assumption or even just looking at and like focusing on all this stuff, like all this fucking potential. It's like, oh, it could be anything could happen. What if this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And I'll do that for like a couple minutes, sometimes longer. And then it'll hit me like just almost like snap back into reality. Like, oh, I can't do anything about all of that. Like this right now, I'm sitting in a chair right now. I have something on my screen right now. There are people here. There's a thing happening. And if it's not this, then it's something else. I'll be fucking making a sandwich, going through this thing that's could potentially happen in like 7 months. Like I'm making a sandwich right now. That's a whole fucking experience. That's kind of cool. I'm like, I can see where the mayo is dropping into the points in the bread, and there's little like holes that it's catching, and there's a whole sort of art to it. Like I'm doing an art project right now, and I'm thinking about some dumb bullshit that's not going to happen in a couple of months or whatever it may be. Things shift, and all of a sudden, all these perspectives open up, but there's an excitement in that, like the potential of not focusing and not letting that weigh me down so much, then everything gets a little bit more exciting. And like when situations shift and change, and all of a sudden what could be this overwhelming thing becomes almost like, oh, I'm strapping up for an adventure right here. That's obviously way more fun. Like, oh my God, the doom and gloom of all of the potentials that I could focus on, and just the feeling of a weight with that is gnarly. But as soon as you snap, it's like, oh, here I am. I'm just here. Luke, what's up, man? Good to see you.
How's it going, man? Yeah, Levi, I feel that just talking about the immense amount of pressure, weight we feel like going into work, it's like ridiculous. Like I'm doing this to myself. It's only me doing this. And like I feel my lieutenant just got back from leave and like I've been asking her questions because I'm gonna fill the NCO position. I'm gonna be a sergeant soon. It's like uh and I felt like a little bit of attitude and like a little like, I don't I don't like that. A little anger, and when I'm asking stuff, and I'm like, damn, like I want to say something, but she's my higher up. I'm like, I don't want to cause a ruckus. So now I'm just like, but I'm still doing my job. I'm in charge of the soldiers, so I do the soldiers' actions, I do their awards, and she has to do the trackers. So I'm trying to learn how to do the tracking of the personnel for our higher ups of like tracking their information, just like there's a bunch of information we have to track in all different trackers. And I'm trying to like ask her questions to learn it. And I don't know if she's stressed or upset. Like I can't read her mind, or maybe so she's taking it out on me. I don't know, but now I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna do what I do. If I have time to do those trackers, if I have time to learn, I'm like, I'll do that. But if I have other emails and other actions that need to be done, I'm like, I'll do that because she's gonna do her thing. If she needs something from me, then I'll do it. But now I'm like, if I'm doing my job, like if I do what I need to do, I'm stopping asking questions. I'm if she needs me to do something, like I'm not gonna waste my energy on something when I get backlash and I'm like trying to learn. And the thing is, I will learn eventually. It's just gonna. We have no NCO right now, so I'm just got in the army and I'm filling that position. So it's like once we get it back, it'll be fine. But so for now, I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna take a step back. She needs help, she can ask me, and and now I'm like, oh, so much pressure, like so much weight is lifted. I'm just gonna like, and I get that weird, like Andrew was saying, like all the little outcomes and how things that won't even happen 7 months from now. Like I'm thinking, oh, I'm gonna get kicked out or whatever. That always comes to my mind. But it's like that's not gonna happen. Like if you're doing your job, they can't really kick you out for anything unless you like do get in trouble. So I'm just gonna like just because she's mad at me or she gives me like an attitude and I get angry and I'm like, what the hell? Like I was asking a question. It's like even if that happens, like if I'm still doing my job, there's nothing she can do about that. So I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna stop rocking the boat. I'm gonna just do what I'm told and enjoy my life. So that's been a huge relief. Um, so now I'm like, all right, I can just chill and do my work, and I'm not gonna worry so much about doing all these trackers and stuff.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Luke. That's the appropriate response, I would say. But it's so interesting how, and again, I think a large part of this comes down to school, where we go into a job and all of a sudden it's like, we take it upon ourselves to make sure the company moves forward to the best of its abilities. And then the people above us are like, tone it the fuck down. We're like, what is wrong with you? Right. But that's the problem with these companies because they're just there for their paycheck. And you're right, they're probably dealing with their own shit. And so you're willing, but that's actually not welcome to them. And so you do just step back. You're like, hold up, it's not my army. Like this isn't my company. The fuck am I all worried about? I am just going to sit back and do my fucking job. Right. But then they're like, well, why aren't you more motivated? It's, well, I can't fucking imagine. It's like, because every time I try to express something new, you shit on it. And so it's that problem in the idea of a hierarchy. And especially with the military and especially in corporate America or corporate anything, there's that hierarchy. And so the person above you, because they're not actually invested in you as a person or the relationship with you. They see themselves as above you, just disregards you. They live in their tower and they don't have to listen to you because you're below that fucking tower, right? And so in those structures, especially, this is why Susan, who was on the show previously, who is a psychologist and works at a college and does all that, she worked her way up through all of that shit. And now she sits up there and she's basically just being herself with everybody below her in the same way that you are being yourself with everybody who is in your realm of responsibility. I don't like the expression below her or below you, but in your realm of responsibility, you're like, hey, be yourself. Hey, don't worry about that. Relax, chill out. Person above you is not going to get that, but that's not within your sphere of responsibility because of that environment. Right. So I think you're doing a great job. And that was the fucking best choice, in my opinion. So thanks for sharing it, Luke.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I like to use the Trojan horse analogy a lot, especially in the workplace with because corporate America and military and all that stuff is very much a product of a given mentality. And so not embodying that mentality as much in those places isn't always going to be uh received super gracefully, I guess. But we see it changing. Like we see the structures of corporate America, especially changing. I think COVID with, Ben bringing up remote work, and that is sort of a shift in more flexibility, not quite as much rigidity. And so although the structures seem to be staying the same, they're kind of changing from the inside as we change and our mentality changes. But yeah, at first it's rare. It's rare that there's going to be that response. It's like, oh yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. Exactly. But then you have the ability to at least do what you can, and as you work your way up, similar to Susan's situation, then there is starts to be some points where there is a little bit of influence, and you can, have more sway than you ever realized you might have. And sometimes it is just paying your dues and like still within the realm that you can be yourself, because there's always the opportunity for that, and just also not feel like you have to fight every battle too, because again, like there's no should. So there is a sensitivity to the situation. Just be like, all right, I've pushed a bit here. I think if I might be out of here if I push any more. So we're gonna hold back for a bit, and that's cool too, because that's on the table no differently than standing up for what I think is right. And so that's the value and sensitivity, I would say. So, but yeah, great to hear, Luke. Jackie, what's up? Good to see you.
Hey everyone. And yeah, relating a lot to the conversation so far. It's because my job has been pissing me off, and I say that with love recently. Um, and there's just like you guys were mentioning, there's just such a dynamic and a hierarchy between the management and like the rest of the staff. And for me, it's something that it's like it's frustrating to me that people that just go in and do their job well, like aren't just rewarded for their work. And there's like all these like weird politics and like just little tiny like nuances or like personal biases that like make the decisions. And that can be frustrating as someone that's just like, all right, like, I'm not playing any of those games. And yeah, so it's been a little frustrating, but and similarly to what y'all were describing, I've kind of been humbled, and I'll be at this place where I'm like, I could make this worse for myself, right? Like I expected something to happen, and I know that expectations always lead to disappointment or some sort of, reality is just most 99% of the time is going to give you something that you didn't expect. And so it's your choice whether you want to like tense up and like blow up in response to that, or like just allow it, be like, well, okay, like allow yourself to be humbled a little bit, right? And like as much as everything is possible, it's also not going to happen exactly how you expect it to, right? And like just because you can't have what you want right now doesn't mean that you'll never get there if like if you hit a roadblock, right? And if somebody says no to you, or, doesn't like your idea or reacts negatively to you trying to advocate for yourself, right? It's like reality is just gonna present you roadblocks, and you should just I feel like I just kind of expect them at this point. And as much as like I don't see them until I see them. And that part can be a little bit frustrating and embarrassing. That's also like, that's the fun part, right? Like, I would hate if I knew how everything was gonna go and everything just went the way I wanted it to. Like, it's fun. That's where the plot thickens. And yeah, so just having an overall accepting attitude of it and being like, okay, yeah, maybe I don't know everything. And maybe this other person has a valid point, right? And like what I think is right maybe isn't. And maybe I have a thing or two to learn, especially as a 23-year-old person. I'm like, wow, okay, like I need to maybe sit down a little bit and just, approach my life with enthusiasm and participation and do my best. And like, I care a lot about things. And I think I'm going to keep caring because this is my life, right? So I'm going to care, but like I should never let any one thing be the determining factor of whether I'm okay in general in my life, because there's always going to be a bunch of shit that's like in process in your life, or you're going to be, always in a transition period. Like I used to describe periods of my life as like, oh, I'm in like kind of a weird transition period. And then there's other times where I feel really settled, but it's just knowing that in general, things are always changing. And even if you feel like you're in a point of stagnation or being settled, like things are still churning under the surface, like things are happening all around you. And like the, I hate to say it like this, but like the universe is conspiring, like not against you or for you, but just kind of out of the realm of your immediate awareness. It's still your awareness and you're connected to it. And like, you're going to eventually walk in down the path that is like also forming around you at the same time. Um, but like, it's cool to know that that's always happening and shit is always working out and it's never going to be fully worked out. So you can just kind of be cool with at whatever point in your life you are. And so recently in life, I feel like I've just been like more slippery. I don't know if that's a good way to describe it. It's just like I'm not holding on so much to stuff and I'm not trying to figure out really what's going on. And I'm just kind of going with what feels good to me at the moment. And yeah, it's led me down some unexpected paths, but I'm just like down for the ride, right? I'm like, okay, well, this is cool and new things are happening and opportunities are arising. I mean, the podcast, like the yoga thing now, like the yoga series we're doing, and I'm like popping into like new yoga studios and like just trying to like get connected and get my foot in the door. So like that's cool. And I'm realizing like how many connections and how many opportunities that I have and fighting the urge not to think I have to take them all at once or do everything all at once. Cause I have such it's so hard for me not to keep creating ideas of like where my life is going to go. I mean, I guess it's fine that I keep creating them, but just letting them pass through without holding on to them. And just recognizing that things are going to happen in their own time. Like my timing is not the way shit's going to work out. The way I would ideally want my life to go is no, like think about how many fucking possibilities there are, right? So it would be really fucking dumb for me to like really believe that I was gonna get my way enough to be mad and like frustrated and disappointed and like it just doesn't make sense anymore. And yeah, that makes everything in life so much easier. Everything. Because it's like, well, I don't have to make it harder on myself. Like shit can already be hard, but I can be relaxed internally. And then you can do pretty much fucking anything. And if you don't have an expectation, you're just there to see how it goes. It'll just go the way that it goes and you're going to be fine regardless. Because like I've been disappointed so many times in my life and I'm still chilling. So yeah, just that constant process of, oh yeah, like I'm thinking about it too hard. Where am I? Like, what am I actually doing? Let me be more invested in this. And yeah. Happy roundtable, guys. I haven't been here in a minute for one of these. So yeah. Good to see you guys.
Great to see you as always, Jackie. And I get you with that, and with the thought of like all the things and all the uncertainty and all that stuff. And then usually I'll just think, all right, what's my priority right now? And relaxation and like the heartbeat reminder has been helping me a lot recently when I start, thinking about what I want or where I want to be or what I want to happen or where I want things to go, or just not knowing what I want really. It's like I come back to just like what I'm doing. I like Levi was saying, with just how it can just come back to this right now. I can spend time thinking about all the potential stuff, but that doesn't change any of that stuff. Like, this is the only spot I can have influence. And as I slow down a little bit and relax to the best of my ability, things do have a way of clearing up. It's like, as I'm trying to do everything, I am trying to see everything at once, and it's like I'm not even seeing anything sometimes. And so as I relax, it's like I start, the fog starts dispersing a little bit. It's like, all right, this makes sense to do right now. Now this makes sense to do right now. There's sort of a clarity that comes with that, but it's like slowing down, as opposed to a lot of times my inclination is to like speed up and try and get everything done. And it's first slowing down, and then it gets a lot clearer. There's some degree of, at least, next step, maybe not a path or a distance, but next step at least.
That's it. It's always next step, next step. It's funny because you're going through a process right now, Jackie, that's not necessarily unfamiliar to me, because I spent a while as a life coach and as a Wing Chun teacher, looking for a place to practice. Looking for either a yoga studio or a martial arts class, or a warehouse, or something where I can get an office space, or whatever it was. Looking for the right team. And there's that trepidation, because it's one thing to talk about, it's another thing to be walking through the door of a new place. Like, hi, how you doing? Not sure who to talk to about this, but I was wondering if I could work here. And it's just that each and every one of those moments, each and every conversation, you're changing, you're growing. And as I was saying earlier to Ben, like, you're going to look back at these and not even remember these moments unless you specifically look for them. But there's so many that eventually contribute to you just having faith in yourself. So it's an exciting process, even with all the stress that is a part of that process. I'm going to pass it over to Amanda here, but quickly I wanted to mention that Jackie and Andrew are actually doing a yoga series together called Being Yoga. You can check out the first video on our YouTube channel. There are many more to come, of course. And there's even a little bit of an after conversation that you can check out as well. Don't miss this series. It's going to be a lot of fun. And that, of course, is in addition to the series that Jackie and Amanda have been working on in terms of Dualistic Unity Reel, the music reviews, which they have already started with the Christmas episode, and then, of course, the episodes that they've been doing throughout season 6. So we have been busy motherfuckers.
Yes, we have. But definitely recommend checking out the yoga series. It is effective and extremely hilarious. And so I got in a good workout following along, but I got in a lot of good laughs. My internet is a little unstable, so we'll make do. But I definitely resonate with the work conversation, because this past week and a half, I've certainly not been loving corporate politics or office politics. And yet sometimes I love them. And so I was like, and I reminded myself of that. I was like, yeah, we may be feeling like, I don't have to participate, but there is, in my opinion, no such thing as no participation, because whether you say something or not, whether you have the same motivations, you're still contributing to that environment. And the politics don't happen in a vacuum. They happen with you contributing to them. And so when I was listening to you, Luke, talk about, dealing with your boss and how they're not always the most receptive, and Ben, they're not always receptive to the way that you change your structure or your ideas. It's sometimes I like to present the idea like it's theirs. I'm like, you remember that time we were having a chat and I forget, I thought you had an idea about this, this, and this. And when people think that it's their idea, they're a lot more receptive to it. That I am absolutely encouraging a manipulation. But at the end of the day, do I really need to sign every idea that flows through my head? Do I really need credit for every idea that I come up with? Or is benefiting the group more important than getting credit for that idea? So sometimes I have been adamant about making sure that like I contributed in this way, especially for performance reviews, right? We just got out of that. But sometimes I don't care if I get credit for it, if I'd rather have my boss think that it was their idea to get them to push the idea through to their boss. So I have done both. And it is totally up to you how you want to navigate the office politics that are in every single work environment, regardless of industry. So I make that recommendation that, not everything has to have your name on it. Certain things you take pride in, certain things you feel more passionate about. And so like, you want people to know that you thought about it, but really, is that so necessary for everything when you're trying to change your work culture, when you're trying to change the environment? Like sometimes it's better to stay in the background. And I always loved reading stories about people that I never knew who were pushing great change. People that, none of the names are coming back to me, but I saw a documentary and it was in the music industry. And I think it was, what was his name? But they had nicknamed him the Black Godfather. And it was somebody that I never heard about, but he had been the bridge between so many musical artists and music producers and the civil rights movement. And someone who had contributed, and the name of the documentary is Black Godfather. It is on Netflix, and it was absolutely fascinating to learn. I think his name was Clarence. I'm pretty sure his first name was Clarence, but it was just amazing to find out about people who cared less about getting credit and they cared more about the contribution that they could push along. So, not that we always have to be so selfless and never, put your name to anything. But I thought that was something a consideration to keep in mind is, would you rather there be genuine change, or would you rather get credit for the change that you inspire? And so I definitely was thinking about that, because it goes towards, what your priority is. Is your priority getting another gold sticker showing how evolved you are, how above politics you are, how enlightened you are? Or is it just about making a contribution because that's what you would like to do, and you don't care how it evolves, as long as that idea takes root? So I don't necessarily think that you can not be involved in politics because there's like church politics and corporate politics and social politics. So it's like, are you ever not contributing to any of that? And it's not to say that like, you that needs to be a priority, but it's just, I guess the way that I'm navigating more in my workplace is just relaxing more and just inspiring conversations, just trying to have conversations and to be a catalyst more than to climb the ladder as fast as possible, or to make sure that I'm getting the biggest raise. Because, I've left jobs with another job offer. I've left jobs with no job offer. I have gone to school and gone to college and worked full time and volunteered at nonprofits and was super efficient, and yet I am nowhere near where I thought I would be. So I guess I'm not really worried too much about where I'm going to land, more so how much fun am I having jumping, and where can be my next launch pad? Where can I jump off next? And and just trying to keep it light, because it's just an option. So I definitely resonate. But I also this week have not been loving the corporate politics. So I'm like, no. But I still do it. And I'm just like, you know what? Thank you so much for that feedback. I will incorporate it going forward. Have a great day. And there we go. And we have kissed that corporate ass, and we puckered up. And we did it, damn it. We did it when we didn't want to, because, if I really don't want to participate, I can quit. I can quit right now, and I can leave right now. So like, what's the problem? Like, we don't want to participate in the environment that we're in, then we can leave it. But we don't have to think that, that we're so separate from that environment, or that, or that participating is the worst thing. Like, I participate in corporate politics, and it's not the worst thing in the world. And I just encourage manipulation, like making your boss think that that's their idea, because fuck it, man. Like, sometimes you gotta persuade, and you gotta convince, and you're selling ideas. And sometimes it's I guess it's not the worst thing if you're not taking it too seriously, if you're not trying to win something, and I had looked up like the definition for corporate politics, and it said something along the lines of it involves the use of power and social networking within a workplace to achieve changes that benefit the individuals within it. And I think a great synonym for power is access. Our leaders don't have power that is unattainable, but they have greater access to the resources within that company. So I think it's how they use that access to benefit themselves, and when they can be empathetic to the people that are working on their quote unquote teams, they can share that access, they can share that privilege, and they can do more than just benefit themselves. Not that benefiting yourself is something to completely avoid.
Yeah, well said. And that double-edged sword of identity too, when like trying to be right or passing it off to someone else, there's almost, you start to realize, oh, if I want to be right so bad, like there's gonna inevitably be a pitfall to that. Like getting really caught in that, as good as it feels or as bad as it feels to not be right. It's like trying to be, there's gonna be some trade-off there. So sometimes a little subtle manipulation. Yeah. That was your idea for sure. It's like, yeah. That was. It's just a bitch because then, you're getting promoted and it's like all these people have done all of these things that you actually did, but you're like, yeah, no, you did it. So it's like this strange structure where that disincentivizes that, despite that being the best for the whole, in a sense.
It's true, but a lot of times what I've noticed is that when I've let my bosses quote unquote get credit for my ideas, they really like me, and then they invite me to the after work events, then they invite me to the meetings with the bosses, then they trust you to do more when they're not there. Like, as much as it seems like you're not going to get anything out of it, like I certainly have in my experience, and it's because and I think Robert Greene puts this in like the 48 laws of power. It's like, never outshine your boss, because they have small egos and they're easily threatened. So when you're working so hard to impress your boss, you can inadvertently threaten their ego, and then they get nervous that you're trying to take their job for them. So giving them credit for your ideas, not every single idea, but just you try to be strategic, and you give them some ideas, and you hold, maybe you have an idea, and there's a way that you could break it down. There's like phase 1 of that idea and phase 2, and you can give your boss credit for phase 1, and then when they run with it, and then when you're in that meeting with their boss and them, then you're like, you know what, guys, I was really thinking about this. I think we can take this up a notch. Boom. You gave them credit for phase 1, and you now got invited to sit at the table. And when you are at that table, you can give them phase 2. So like I'm saying, the way that my brother put it was like, it's the laws of the land. Law 1 is like, make it look good. And it was like, you make it look good. You make your bosses look good, because they have somebody to answer to, and they want to look good. So keeping in mind that they have that their interest is to look good. If you make them look good, they remember that shit. And then they want to keep you close, and then they want to invite you to other things. And so like it's a domino effect, man. And I'm not saying that you need to always be in a manipulative mindset, but just know when to pick your battles, essentially. Know when you want to get credit, and know when getting credit really isn't going to get you anything long term. But it's almost like thinking about your career with a chess mindset versus a checkers mindset. Checkers, you always want to think about the one next square, the next move. With chess, you want to think 4, 5, 6 moves ahead. So your career, you can think about it in the same way. Giving up a small win for a small battle is nothing in terms of winning the war. But again, we're not taking that too seriously. It's all a matter of, are you still enjoying yourself too? Because when there's only strategy, you've lost the enjoyment that was always available, that had nothing to do with your career. So you know, as much as I'm saying like be strategic, you know, keep it light, but just know that it's not always, the immediate gratification isn't always the carrot you want to bank on.
Well said. I really enjoyed the push, and then but keep it light at the same time. Fuck yeah. Amen. Jeff, what is up, man? Great to see you. How you doing?
Hey man, I'm good. I'm really good. Just sit there thinking that the man, I forget. Like, no, I don't forget. I don't forget at all. Like it it everybody's so young, and I feel like I'm so old, right? And but I was just sitting there thinking about. I mean, and I know Ray. You know, he's up there with me and everything. You know, but you know, I'll be 50 years. I'll be 50 years old in a month. Um, and like I you know, I'm looking at listening to all this stuff about, you know, careers and all this stuff and everything, and I've you know, I've yeah, I've I don't really have, yeah, I don't have a career. Okay, I got a job where I make you know, just I make enough to get by, and I've always done like physical type stuff, and of course I'm getting older, and I've been really really bad on my body, um, and um, and so you know that's so like with and I look at well, I look at people here, and I'm like, wow, they really got their shit together, right? So it's really nice to hear that people, you know, struggle with the same things I do. It's just in different ways, in different ways, but and it also, God, there's a lot right here, but I don't want to like manipulate, but that I also have that thing where it says, you know, where it says, I don't know, man, like it, I where yeah, where I feel less than, you know, I feel less than with people, and shit, man, I don't even know what the fuck I'm saying. Anyway, man, but I had a good direction I was going with this, um but the thing is, but here, okay, all right, I'm gonna get to this and I'm gonna shut the fuck up. But is that okay? I can look at this. I was sitting thinking that I can look at this like, okay, I'm you know 50 years old, and I don't really have anything, any money, or and I don't know what I'm gonna do with my you know what's going to happen tomorrow and everything, and I don't know what in the long haul. But this, you know, like y'all are teaching me or helping me learn, you know, or helping me remember, you know, that it's going to be fucking okay no matter what, you know, and I don't sit around in fear about this stuff. But and I can also, you know, also have this choice where I can focus on these things that I would like my life to be different. I would like to, you know, to whatever, you know, I can focus on that, but if I wanted to, but what I but what I can also focus on is the fact that I am 50 years old, and I'm having fucking monumental fucking experiences, dude. I mean, like, I'm learning shit that some people probably never learned their whole entire fucking life, you know? And I'm man, I'm not going to share right now, but man, I had an experience last night after, you know, after our group and everything, man, and it was, I mean, it was incredible, you know, and I think, I think it's the greatest experience that's ever happened in my entire life. Like, really. And I will share that sometime, but, so like, so fucking what? I don't have any social security bill, though. I don't know what the job, you know, who gives a fuck, man? I feel like I'm experiencing things that some people never get to experience ever, you know, and I'm here for it. And and y'all are so much a part of that, yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna do my thing. I'll be quiet. Thanks.
Oh, thank you,
Kyle,
man. I love having you here, man. But admittedly, I gotta say, you get on a good tear. and then you pull back and you're like, no, I'm not going to go that way. And I feel gypped. I'm like, where are we going? What the fuck was about to happen there? And then, of course, because you've pulled back, you're like, shit, I lost my train of thought. And that's what happens. So just like everything else that we're saying here, man, just fucking dive in. If you're going to talk, fucking talk. I mean, this is why we're here, and you have more than enough value to offer. It's just about, like you were saying, it's the same lesson that everybody else is learning here, that you have value in just expressing yourself, and that it's not something you have to hesitate to do, and it's not something you have to rush to do. You know, it's something that you give its own goddamn good time, and then when you do it, you fucking commit to it. You're like, I'm going to say what I'm going to say, all right, and that's it, and that's really it. But it's always that level of awareness, because sometimes we can just keep going on and on and on, not realizing that it's because we want to feel like we're being heard rather than processing something. And sometimes it's genuinely like, no, this is what I'm going through, this is what I'm working through. If I wasn't talking to you about it, I'd be talking to myself in my head, right? And so that's the most genuine conversation, and that's what I do in all my conversations. I've actually said this to people. It's like, you understand this conversation would be happening if you weren't here, right? Like, I've actually said this to people, because it's true. Half the time you'll hear me go back and forth about something because I'm working through it. And so we love it when you show up, man, and you work through it with us, because that's what we're all here to do.
Hey, fucking man. Yeah, great to have you here as always, Jeff. And it's incredible how we can create, this sort of story about where we should be at or what we should have figured out by a certain point or a certain age, and then like, oh, but I'm rather enjoying my experience right now. Is that not enough? And you look around and like, well, no, because I don't like my experience right now, but I have all these things. Look at all this stuff. Look at all these things that I've accomplished that has nothing to fucking do with what they're doing right now. All that shit. So you can't, it's not even like there's hardly overlap between, like, there is some degree of overlap and experience and all that good stuff. But for the most part, it's like, if you can be all right here, at least, here for being here, all right, is, that shit varies. But if you can be here, it's like it's hard to think that you're doing too much wrong if you're paying attention right now. So it's always great to have you, man.
And am I still on mute? Just can you hear me?
Oh yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, and I was also thinking too, that if anything different had happened in my life, then I might not be here right now talking with y'all, and I'm enjoying this a whole fucking lot. So yeah.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. It's something I've said to people before, is that, we all have very different journeys, but they all give us the ability to relate to very different people. There are people that you'll relate to that I can't. There's people that everyone in here can relate to that others maybe wouldn't, because our stories are too different, or we just haven't gotten to the point where we can see, the similarity. But it's important. All of our journeys, doesn't matter how we got to it, we're fucking here and enjoying our life. And that's the thing. Like, I've had people look at me and they judge me for, where I am in terms of finances or career or anything, because I'm full out, like, just fuck it, I'm gonna try, and if it doesn't work, I'm gonna try again. I've watched project after project after project just turn to ash, and I've had people judge me for not having more in terms of accumulation and all that, and I just kind of laugh. I laugh because I experience a universe, I experience reality in a way that most people will never get anywhere close to touching, because I spent so much time just really sinking into why I wasn't appreciating it. And so yeah, it's fucking great. People are like comparing themselves, and it's like, you have no idea. And I know you have no idea because you're comparing yourself. That's how I know how fucking confused you are.
Said Ben, what is up, man?
Yeah. I'm really glad, Jeff, that you spoke up and expressed yourself, because it makes me, because you saying like that I'm like young is like yeah, that's cool, because I think of, and even it also relates to what Ray said about like not remembering this time. Like, I don't remember all the times I spoke up for myself, but I really appreciate those moments, because that's why I'm here and really enjoying my life as it is right now. And so I think of like What would me in 10 years think of this moment? I don't know if he would remember what I said, but it was necessary to get to where 36-year-old Ben is. And just like looking back at life too. I have a friend who is 18 and he just finished his first semester of college. And when I was talking to him, he was like, "Man, I got smacked. Like reality smacked me. Like I felt I got my first 40 on a test. Like I get straight A's in high school." I was like, "Yeah, man, that'll happen. College will that happens to pretty much everybody." And he's just like stressing about it. I'm like, "No, you don't. I mean, yeah, that's your experience. I mean, yeah, I stressed about it too, but I'm chilling still, and you're gonna be chilling." And so I think like 36-year-old Ben would probably tell me right now, like, you're gonna be chilling. You're fine, even though you're going through this. And I also think like why did I even bring it up? Why did I say this today to my boss and my coworker? Because it means something to me. It's like worth, I don't know, like it's just worth it to go through all of these nerves because this is like I don't know if this is the best thing for me to be fully remote, but in this moment it sure as hell means something. Something enough for me to speak up and fight through my nerves for. So yeah. Yeah, it's worth it. It's anything that you think is worth having that you're willing to go through shit for, probably worth having. Because even if you don't get what you want, you still went through the shit and you still grew. And this is really I'm really talking to myself here. So yeah.
Pretty much always.
Oh yeah, and when you scale it out for a sec, and you're like, all right, you're gonna do this thing, and it's maybe gonna be uncomfortable for a little while, but how much it has the potential to shift me, and like every moment past it, when there is a build up to something or nervous about jumping into something, and you just do it, it's like, oh, uncomfortable. Actually went better than I thought. So I was suffering in my head more than I actually suffered as I was as I was going through it, and then it then shifted all the ripples for the rest of my life after just from that. And like the trade and just because of that build up or the fear or whatever, don't want to jump into something. But then yeah, the ripple and the impact just from doing it. And even like doing something scared and being willing to be like, yeah, I'm fucking petrified right now, but I'm doing it. Like just that, the ripple that makes, like, oh, other people, and then someone else there is like, oh, other people get afraid of stuff too. Oh, I resonate with that, and I'm still afraid of doing it, and they actually ended up doing fine. And so, yeah, we don't realize like it's a like a tenfold ripple, or I guess every ripple is fucking we don't know what it is, but it's not just like the doing it, but then it ripples through our life, and then allows us to jump into more stuff. The more we jump into, the more comfortable we are jumping in, and just that act, and as uncomfortable as it feels, it's like it's certainly a worthy trade-off when you take a step back and realize just how much potential influence there is in doing that. Amanda, what up?
I love that you spoke up, Jeff. This is incredible. I just because so many times people will say like they don't think that they have something to offer because they don't have like stats, that they don't look quote unquote good on paper, but you're so much more than a fucking resume, a social resume. You're so much more than just stats. One of the earliest lessons that my mom taught me was just that you don't judge the CEO and you don't judge the homeless person on the street because you don't know what it took for them to get to where they are. You don't know if they stepped on everybody to get to that penthouse. You don't know if they were a doctor yesterday and they're dealing with something and all of a sudden they became homeless. You have no idea where anybody is. And so you don't want to judge them regardless to what their book cover looks like, and I think about the titles and like, One of the titles that's in my job is budget coordinator. That's just a fancy way to say I pay bills on time. Doesn't sound as impressive anymore, does it? I know how to use someone else's money to pay their bills on time. You know, a mediator. I know how to build bridges between people. You know, a chef. I know how to combine foods together. Like, so many titles that are supposed to sound impressive, when you break them down, it's just people who learned how to do a thing. People who learned how to put time and attention towards one direction and get better at putting their time and attention somewhere. But everyone has something to contribute. I can learn something from everybody, including you, Jeff. And I learn from you every time that you speak up, every time that you call your fear and doubts bluff and you speak up. Even though you don't think you have anything to offer, you speak up and we all resonate. We all get something from it. We all see value where you, even for a moment, think that there isn't, or you have to convince someone. It's something that, you know, we all experience to some degree. Some of us, it feels like you feel those thoughts or you have those thoughts more often, but I definitely learn from every single person that decides to share either in the comments or decides to join a round table or decides to create a video on social and tag DU and share their perspective. You know, something that I remind my own mother, because, you know, I'm one of the first people in the family to go to college, and I don't use my degree. But my mom thinks that it's this greatest thing. And I tell her all the time, I'm like, you know, or I used to, we don't have this conversation as much, but I made an effort to tell her, like, what you've learned in your life is valuable and transferable, and it impacts me. And even though you don't have a fancy certificate in a goddamn frame on the wall, your life experience helps. It inspires, it motivates, it's relatable, it's valuable. And you don't need a certificate to be valuable. You don't need a fancy title to share life, to be reality. And that is enough. And you know, it's so many times we jump through hoops and we think we have to go to school or have a mentor or buy a house or have a certain amount of money in our bank accounts, because you think, like, one day I'm going to be somebody. Like, you are someone right now. You are enough right now. And all those things, you could have them. And I'm very glad that I've met people who have amazing stats. And usually those people are the people that are struggling in a way that you never expect them to. You think that because they have great stats, they don't have insecurities, that they don't have struggles. And it's like, so most of the time, the people that I admired the most are the people that, after I spent actual time with them, I never wanted to live their life again. I never admired their life again, because once I got past the stats, there was no meaning behind the stats. It was just, everything was going through the motions, but they weren't, you know, they weren't living. There was no passion, there was no life, but they had stats. They were impressive, you know? So it's just, I'm glad that you spoke up, and it's a reminder to all of us that it doesn't matter what you look like on paper, you're so much more than that. And we both can find out together when we put the stats down and we just exist in a moment that we're co-creating together, a once in a lifetime moment that'll never be the same, because we're always changing. And so I'm very glad that we get to share that and that this is documented. So, like, we get to go back. I know Andrew and Ray, you guys were just saying, like, if you're a Patreon member, you've been sharing and going on video, you can go back and you can see your journey, because it's amazing to forget, like, where we've come from and what we struggled through. But thankfully, a lot of this is documented, so we can look back and see all that growth, even when it feels like we're stuck.
Absolutely. Well said. And I promise, Jeff, I'm going to relent at some point here. I just wanted to say that you were on Patreon for a while with us, and we had gotten to know you, and then life had interceded, and you had to go back out into the world and learn new lessons and come back. And so it's really nice that you were able to actually join us for this roundtable, because I know there was a period where you had signed up for a roundtable and you weren't able to make it, and that was the last I saw of you for quite some time. And I always wondered, when is that motherfucker going to get onto a roundtable? And so it's really nice to finally have you here. And I knew it was bound to happen. It was bound to happen. It's a perfect example, though, of why we're here and why we continue to do this, is so that way you can weave in and out of the conversation as you need to, knowing that each and every time you weave out and weave back in, you bring more insight, you bring more color, you bring more taste and texture to this conversation, and it's always valued. So I'm really fucking stoked. I'll pass it over to Andrew and then Jackie, and then we're gonna relent on poor Jeff.
Oh yeah. Last part, and I'll relent as well. Like half the time I show up to these, I'm like, am I gonna have anything decent to say today? Is this really? Am I? Who the fuck am I to be hosting a group? You know, it's all like we all go through that shit like all the time. As much as, I don't even know how many fucking times I've been on a Zoom call in the last 2 years, in some degree, podcast or group or whatever, probably upwards of at least 500 or 6 or 7 or 8. I don't know the number, but it's a lot, and it's still there. It's still a potential, even right before I start talking. Sometimes, like, yeah, it's always there and never actually what I think it's going to be, or am afraid it's going to be, and so it's exciting to kind of find out. But always great having you, Jeff. Jackie.
Yeah, right now I'm scared. I'm scared right now to talk. And that was the case when I first got on Patreon, the first time I raised my hand, and my palms were sweating. My palms are sweating right now. Like, that hasn't changed. But just my willingness to throw myself in, I think, is the only difference, right? Just knowing that eventually I'm gonna find my way to the surface, right? Like I'm gonna swim. Like if I throw myself in, I will swim. And that's just my intelligence at work. And I don't need to think about how that's happening, because when I'm doing the thing, I'm not really thinking about it. And yet it's happening and I'm doing it. But like, I don't know, just especially when I just constantly come back to, I don't even know how much agency I have over my own choices and actions. And it's my choice to like say yes or no to things, like, but the situations that present themselves into my life, the background that I've had, so all of the conditioning that I've had, I didn't really have control over that. So it's like I I know that there's a little influence, but control is just, you're never going to be able to control and say the perfect thing and have everybody in the group resonate and be like, wow, that just changed my whole life. That was the best thing you could have said. Like, that does not exist. And what you think that profound statement that you could possibly come up with would be, like, the more you think about it, the further away you're getting from reality and from like what's actually salient in the moment in the conversation. Like, you might be like steering the conversation away from an insight that if you had just relaxed and, maybe put that thought that you thought you were going to say to the side and just open your mouth and see what comes out. It might, that's usually in my experience, when I surprise myself and when I like am able to say something that a lot of people resonate with more, is like when I'm just allowing myself to be and sort of speak from this void of nothingness and everything, right? At the same time of like, yeah, this shit is working out and I don't know how, and I don't have to, motherfucker. I don't have to. And I can still be here and I'm providing value. I don't know how, but um that's another thing, is like we touched on this a little in the post yoga episode that Andrew and I put out, like just not being able to know how you're doing, and that's becoming more and more obvious to me the more that I express myself. Like, every video I create, every episode I'm a part of, like every conversation on Patreon, every yoga class I teach, everything is an experiment. Like everything is just figuring it out on the fly and like doing my best. And like, yeah, there are things that I think I do well and things that at one point in time, I'm like, well, maybe I wouldn't do it that way again. And yet I needed to do it that way in order to see that. So like all of it is less clear. Like I can't say with certainty anything that I do, even if I sat there and stuttered or like was silent for like a minute. That hasn't happened because apparently I can just keep coming up with words out of my ass. But like even if that were to happen and I were to have a total flop and I'm like, that was objectively bad. It's not. And you can't say that with certainty. So it's like not even really that worthwhile to think about. Like it's more worthwhile to think about the reality of what you're doing, like focusing and being interested in reality and what's going on around you and the people around you and doing the things you're doing rather than trying to figure out how you're doing. Like, oh my gosh, you can get so much more out of just really sinking in. Like this is the only place where you have a tangible impact and not in your fucking mind. So yeah, that's just a good reminder. Every time I come onto one of these groups or just do anything really, it's exercising faith in myself. And that can carry you anywhere. And it's like it seems scary at first, but the more things you like go into knowing you'll be okay and then you are, it's like, oh, okay, well, reality maybe isn't as scary as I believed it was when I was still, investing my identity in all of these things that don't fucking matter. It's a lot more fun and exciting and playful and like deeper of an experience when I'm just here to figure out what this is and to like experience my own reality, however that is at any given moment and whatever I'm doing. Like I can feel and really like experience that. And that is such like a invigorating feeling, like when you snap into a moment and you could be doing anything and you're like, holy shit, like existence is blissful. And it's just when you are able to slow down and appreciate it, it's so much bigger than any of these like petty little things that we worry about.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. It's the difference between thinking that the more you do or the better you do, the better you are, the more value you have, as opposed to you having immeasurable value and potential, only waiting for the opportunity to express it and then express it again and express it again. And each expression being an active intelligence in that now your potential and now all that value is getting better and better and better at expressing itself. It's not that we're gaining value, it's that we're just getting better at expressing the value that's already fucking there. Right. And so it changes the entire way that we look at everything. It's not that now I need to get good at this thing because then I'm going to be better in myself. It's I'm gonna get good at this thing if I just keep fucking doing it. Right? And that's the big difference is I just need to keep doing it. Doesn't make me better, just shows what I'm capable of.
All said. Luke, what's up, man?
What's up, man? Yeah, I definitely resonated with what Ray just said and what Jackie was saying. It's just like you're just doing stuff like you don't know if you're gonna stutter or you don't know, you know. And then she said she was saying a lot of stuff, and I was like resonating a lot with it, and she didn't even, probably even know what she was gonna say, and I was like, wow, that's insane. Um, but yeah, like that is so true that like you need to make mistakes and just keep doing stuff like and Jackie was saying earlier like how um if you didn't do it a certain way, you might have not like gotten what you would have gotten out of it if you didn't do it that way. So it's like that's huge. Like if you like for example, like I know I talk about stocks a lot. Still on the stocks. Because that's what I do. That's what I like to do. That's what I want to do. So it is on my mind. So like I'm fucking down like 2000 on one stock. I'm gonna be real. But I realized because I was like so I didn't was resistant to look at it because I was like, oh fuck, I'm just gonna wait till it pops. I'll be fine. And then I realized like when he put the entry in the Discord, it was uh he put it right before the news because he has a scanner. So it was the start of clinical trials for some drug, and it was at 0.65, and and it popped like a little bit. It went to like zero point 0.7 or 0.75, like the day of the news, and then it just dropped down. And and I was like, not really looking at it. I was like, just waiting for it to pop again. I was like, oh, it's good news. It's start of the trials. And then I realized, like, now that I'm looking at it again, and I wasn't judging myself, I was just looking at it. Okay. I was like, I wasn't like, you know, oh, like thinking about my position in it. And I was like, wow, like he put the alert and he didn't put the stop loss, which is in his Discord, he says we don't do stop losses. I'll tell you the entries, but you have to do your own risk management. And which I would like, I wish he would do stop losses, but at the same time, like he did put the disclaimer, like you can't tell him what to do. And it's also great chat. Like they make people make a lot of money, and and he probably does that because he wants to promote it. He puts it on his Instagram and he promotes it, and he wants to like say he's making a lot of money, which is whatever, his thing. But anyway, so uh, then I should have put a stop loss at point 0.55 or point 0.5, which was like the last support or resistance, either one. But it was like when you see that, you're like, why would I invest on a start of a clinical trial when I could have just waited a few months? Because I'll probably be talking about it again once the trials end. They end like halfway through 2024, and I could just take. There's a wash sale rule where you can't buy the stock. You can't write off the stock loss. And like if you buy within 30 days after taking the loss, so if I just take the capital out now, I'll be able to write off uh the the tax break, and because it's not going to like it's basically dependent on this trial. So it's like I could still just take my capital out and then still get back in if I want to, but I'm like thinking, oh yeah, I need to be in this, like, and now like seeing it from this point of view, I'm like, damn, that was dumb. Like, but I was so caught up, and I'm like, but now I'm like gonna. It was such a good lesson though because I took such a big loss, and it hurt so bad that I was like, now that I'm seeing it like 2020, like I'm like, damn, this is a really. I'm kind of glad I did because now I see like, okay, I can just I can invest like I can just watch the because there's so many different entries that he puts in for different stocks. It's like I can just like see the conversation around it, see if there's any news about it, and I don't have to invest in any one thing. I'm like, man, like this is like such a it was such a good lesson because now I'm like, oh, this is so much better than like if I would have not taken the loss. So um it's just interesting that like um now I feel like so free, like, and now I've also changed, like that day I had bought big chunks, and now I just buy in $20 increments, but I'll do like 50 orders, so that's $1,000, but it's just all spread out. Say if it's at point 0.5, I'll buy from point 0.5 to point 0.4, $20 increments, like 50 orders. So that way I'm taking the dip as it goes down. But like for a while, I was like kind of like getting lazy on the order placements. I was like, oh, I'll just buy big chunks. It's not gonna be that much of a difference, but it's a huge difference. So now I'm like, that's just great that like I'm not gonna take the shortcut and I'm gonna if it doesn't hit all my buys, that's okay because I'll just do that a bunch of times and there's no wash sale rule. Obviously, if you take a win, you can get back in. And so I'm like, this is incredible. And I'm like, and usually I would be like there's always the option like I could be take it to heart and like and just not want to do stocks anymore. I'm like, I'm done. I got to find something else. Or you could also make the choice of just like uh not take it to heart and just move forward, see what happened, and know that there's always the next one, and you don't have to take it to heart. You can just like move forward, and you don't and like taking a 10%, 15, 20% loss is not bad at all. Like, especially if you're doing it in increments. So it's like, wow, like that's all I have to do and it'll probably work out well. So I'm like, this is a huge like I don't have to I can just keep losing. I can just start winning if I like if I just try a little bit and I be disciplined on my order placing. It's too easy. So I'm just like I feel grateful even for that loss. So uh yeah, so that's just interesting that that all ties back to stocks. I don't know.
It ties
And
back to risk, right? Like that's the whole
yeah,
thing is that the more you're putting yourself at risk, the more you're venturing out and you're learning lessons about what you can take, what you can't, where your pain threshold is, the fact of whether or not you're watching it or whether or not you're overextending or you're chasing your losses, or there's nothing but lessons throughout all of it. Just want to recommend say again to everybody listening, we are not offering financial advice. Don't take anything on here as an indication of what you should do with your money, because frankly, we don't fucking know, and I don't fucking care. So I just want to say, but everything is a lesson. Everything is a lesson in responsibility. Everything's a lesson in sensitivity. Everything's a lesson in decision making. And so it doesn't matter what you're doing. I think that's the funny part, but risk and insight often go hand in hand for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And the ability to take that risk, especially as you're younger at any point, right? The lessons that you learn then carry with you. And I just think of like, children taking risks left and right, trying new things, jumping into stuff because there's very little concern for how it's going to play out. There isn't seemingly as much risk, but then especially with our, ideas about things, thinking about ourselves, we start to create risk almost. And I'm not saying necessarily money wise or investing wise, but just risk with just an action, to take an action, to jump into something. It seems like there's all this risk, and like there is, if we're giving weight to our own perceptions of things, but the reality is that there isn't in the same way, but it starts to seem riskier and riskier the more we don't jump in to things. And then as we do start jumping into things, it's like that the pull one side or the other starts to shift the more you jump in and the more used to just, jumping in and trying new things there is. But yeah, all these, especially the ones that maybe hurt a little bit more, those are the lessons that are gonna stick a little bit more. And it's all relative, right? Because there could be a situation, 20 years down the line where it's like you might remember something from this and there's way more going on. And so there's a few more considerations that you take in mind that then maybe could lead to a better outcome down there that you wouldn't have had if you hadn't gone through all this stuff. So, yeah, tends to always be the case. Levi, what's up, man?
Yeah, Oh, risk is interesting. I feel a lot like with like my work situation as well. It's not like the same, of course, but it's like what kind of risk do I want to take, you know? And it's like it's a little bit about uh you know, like money wise as well, like going out as an entrepreneur, like there's a lot of risk, but I'll probably learn a shit ton. But then I have like a huge student loan that is like, you know, looming up there, you know. So it's all about kind of finding, you know, something that I'm comfortable with, kind of, well, not too comfortable, of course, but you know what I mean. Like I need to like do something that to some degree considers the risks that is involved with these decisions. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's fun to take risk, and it's like it's kind of like just jumping into something you have no idea how it's gonna go. Like there's a rush with it. Like, you know, just even like whatever I'm saying now, like I like right before I was going, I was like, what the fuck am I gonna say? You know, and it's like, but now it's like it's kind of all that energy is kind of releasing into whatever I'm saying now. And I think that's very true with whatever we're doing. Like I'm not saying like take a bunch of risk like with your money and shit, but it's just like risk feels like there's kind of there's an energy there that is like, yeah, I don't know, it's kind of going out, but yeah, enough about that from me.
Well said, dude. And kind of with that build up, like the energy with risk, it's interesting how like you'll build up a situation, then you jump in and you start doing something that you weren't really prepared for or planning for, and you feel all the feelings, but then in it, it's like when you notice, like, wait a second, I'm doing the thing that I was really afraid of, and you relax in there. It's kind of like I was talking about the other day, just with like, rolling on a fucking little exercise ball or something, and you're rolling around, you find a point that hurts. And it just hits me this week. Like every other time, just like rolled it out and been like, yeah, we're gonna fucking grind this thing to the bone, basically. And just this week, it's hit me like, all right, find the point and then relax when I find it. And it's like all those points, it's not my whole body. There's just certain points that have tension spots. And as it hits, I feel the pain. There's a swell, there's a buildup. Sometimes there's an anticipation as I'm getting close to it. I'm like, oh, this one might hurt. And then as I relax through it, it kind of like subsides it in a sense. And it just feels to me, at least it was hitting me as I was doing it. It's like, wow, this is really fucking symbolic right now. I'm like jumping in to stuff. It's like, all right, there's something I'm afraid of. Do it, relax through that. Because a lot of times those are just knots that we built from like something happening and tensing in response. And so we won't go back to it to give ourselves the opportunity to relax, but actually going back to it and just being able to relax in the face, not really as much considering how it's going, but just being able to relax no matter what, then that knot isn't quite there so much. And so it's not to say that it's like that's how you should live your life, but it's there. And if you got knots, find those motherfuckers and you just got to relax in response. It's not even about, performance necessarily. It's just jumping in and being there for it. Amanda.
I love this talking about like the knots, because when I was thinking about like getting a massage, it's when they find that point of tension that I'm like, okay, what I'd like to do is stay tight. But what I really should do is relax as they find that point of tension. And it's almost like the knot is both new and old tension. It's the old tension that's like stuck there, but it's also all the new tension now that we have our attention on it. But when I had raised my hand initially, it was to respond to Luke, because you were talking about like, investing, and I thought about a recent rabbit hole I found myself down, which is like the illusion of consumer choice. Like most products, most companies are all owned by like megacorps. And So when we're talking about like investing in clinical studies, a lot of those clinical studies are funded by government grants, and their interests are already have a certain focus. So it's like when you're making these investments, it's you know, I don't know, it just feels like you're really only investing in like one choice to some degree, because when you look at who owns the corporation and then who owns them, it's like it's the same, like 5 of them: Vanguard Group, BlackRock, State Street Corporation, JB Morgan and Chase, Bank of America, Geode Capital Management, Capital Research and Management Group. Those are like the big corporations that own everybody. So anytime we're talking about like you investing in a clinical study or a certain business, like you're pretty much only investing in one final boss that we don't really know the name of. Like, so like what really, like how diverse is your investment portfolio? What really, when we really like break down all the different ways that you're spending all this fucking monopoly money, it's like you're really only investing in one product. You know, it's us. Like we're the product that just gets sold and sold and resold and sold again. So I was just thinking about that, and but I don't have to judge the fat leech, the fat 1% leech, to starve it. I just can pay attention to what it eats, and I can be an unfriendly environment, and those groups or those leeches are either going to starve or they can evolve and eat something else. But so I think I was just thinking about that when I was thinking about your investments and like how risky it seems, but then it's like, well, really, you're only investing in one mega corporation that owns everything. So it's like, you know, it feels like the more riskier option is to invest in small businesses, local shops, people, a little business that is down the street from you that's run by like 2 people, you know, but they're selling products that are not full of toxic chemicals. And so that almost feels like the riskier option than investing in one of the corporations or one of the mega corporations or someone who, like, it just feels like that's the riskier option, at least from one perspective. And then the other point that I wanted to make was just that there is no risk-free option. Like, I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care what age you are. I don't care what stage you're in your academic or personal or professional journey. There is no such thing as a risk-free option. There is no such thing as security. So there's no job security, because you could love the job. You could be the best person at the company. They could sell that company while you sleep. You walk into the office and the job that you think you were going to be at for 5 years is gone. You have a friend, you've been friends with them for 25 years. All of a sudden, they decide, you know, they're going to start a business, and that business takes them to moving out of the country. You don't see them anymore. You thought somebody that you were going to know for the rest of your life is gone. Like, there is no such thing as security. There is no such thing as a risk-free option. There is always risk, because the risk is uncertainty. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if the person you're talking to today is going to be there, and people don't always pass away to not be there anymore. They just their journey just takes them in a place that just doesn't seem like it's reachable to you. And so it just feels like, you know, so many times people talk about like the riskiness and high risk and low risk. I'm like, yeah, but there's just always risk, because there's always something that you're not going to, a consideration you're not going to be able to make. And so it's not about, I guess for me, I don't really think too much like, is this high risk or low risk? I just think, you know, do I want to do it? Like, is there a motivation? Is there curiosity? Is there interest? I think that's what I gauge more is am I curious? Am I interested enough, more so than thinking about, is this high risk or low risk? Because there is no such thing as a risk-free option. So what am I measuring risk for? You know, I mean, to some degree, you need to do that. I feel like you're in insurance, if you work in insurance, or if you're, you know, thinking about making a transition, like, I guess you can think about it a little bit, but I don't think about it as much as I used to. And it's not a deal breaker when I can assess that something is high risk. I still jump anyways, because things that I have considered low risk have come with bigger surprises than the things that I worried about that I assessed as being high risk. So is my assessment always accurate? No. So the focus is less on risk and more on, is there genuine curiosity? Do I want to be doing this regardless of the amount of risk that I'm perceiving?
It's a good point. Well, it's funny because, I mean, it really only appears more or less risky based on how afraid we are to lose something. right? If you're not afraid to lose, then it's not really a risk, right? It might be a chance, but you don't consider it to be risky because it's not something that you feel you're in danger of. Whereas if you're like, oh God, I got to keep all this money, then that feels risky, right? Or, oh God, I got to keep my job. That feels risky. But if you're willing to let those things go, then it's just pure enthusiasm. And that's just from being willing to let go and recognize that holding on isn't something that really you need to do. We are wrapping up here very shortly. I'm going to pass it over to Jackie, but quickly, I'm going to say thank you, everyone who could join us today, not just here on the roundtable, but in the comment section during the live stream. There's quite a few people here today, and they've been leaving a bunch of comments. And so we just want to say thank you so much for your support of this conversation, for all the things that you've said during throughout the live stream as a whole. We really appreciate you being here, and we're going to be on Patreon after this. So join us there if you can. Jackie.
Yeah, I'll just kind of wrap things up by, I don't know, just really emphasizing that point that you just don't fucking know at all. Like, you think certain things are risky, and like, yeah, there are patterns, I guess. You can look at the data, but the data is not prediction. The future is completely up in the air always. Or, depending on how you look at time, that's the case. But like, from your point of view as existing in this present moment and experiencing time linearly, everything is uncertain. And yeah, like, you don't know if the thing you're perceiving to be, like, I think Ray, you said it best, just like, if you're not holding on to anything, there's not a risk. There's only risk if you're trying to hold on to, you know, material things like money or an idea, an identity, a image that you're trying to uphold and maintain, either for yourself or either for like yourself to be able to accept yourself, or just because that you think that's what other people want of you. But like, yeah, just recognizing that no one thing could ever be the full extent of what you are, and in fact trying to make that the case is what causes all the suffering and the extreme ups and downs that we can go through, just as humans. When we're attached to things, like, shit gets real and it feels intense and it hurts, quite frankly. And that's not to say that if you lessen your grip on that stuff, it doesn't still hurt sometimes, and sometimes you still get knocked down pretty hard. But yeah, it's like, if you're not perceiving it as a risk, it's just a different circumstance, and there's nothing that's to be gained or lost from any circumstance. It's just another experience to be had, another like flavor to try. And it's like not really a choice whether you get to try it or not. So it's like, you could at least, have an open mind about it, and, be a little lighthearted, rather than, yeah, like, creating that drag and not be willing to let go. It's either let go or be dragged. So you can let go, and, shit gets a lot simpler. And then you're falling through life. It's effortless. And like, yeah, you're still doing stuff, really, but like, it's not the same. It's not. And shit feels so much lighter. Enlightening rather than enlightenment. A lightening. And that can be there for you in any moment you so choose. So yeah.
Yeah. Well said, Jackie. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I really, really, really enjoyed this, and appreciate everyone for who tuned in, everyone who made this what it was. And yeah, it's exciting. It's like this thought that, oh, I got to be perfect about everything. I got to figure everything out, or I can just not take myself as seriously and jump in, and how it goes is how it goes. It's like, uh, I like that one a little more. I've always chose that one, but I kind of like the not taking myself so seriously one, because there's a connection there too. It's not as isolating as maybe it once seemed, because there's a lot of people who are kind of craving a bit of that too. It's like, I want what they're having right there, this lack of seriousness. So anyway, it's been a blast. Appreciate all of you very much. And we're gonna be on Patreon in 15 minutes. So hope to see some of you there.
Bye, everyone.